My name is Phil Perazio, and I'm a urologic oncologist, a surgeon. Like many of you, I absolutely love what I do, and I would not choose another profession. But I have struggled with professional identity, practice efficiency, and wellness over the years. Operate with Zen is a podcast designed to explore a mindful approach to surgery and to being a surgeon. By discussing these struggles and mindful solutions, I hope together we can create a community of strong and healthy surgeons. Enjoy. And welcome to Operate with Zen. Today we've got the great pleasure of having repeat guest, Dr. Angela Smith, on the show. Angie, do the quick introduction for the crew, and then we'll get rolling.
Yeah, well, Phil, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Angie Smith. I'm a urologic oncologist here at UNC Chapel Hill. And as you know, Phil, I love talking about time management, energy management, everything to sort of optimize our lives, both inside and outside of work. And again, it's great to be here.
Well, wonderful. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about time management. How do you structure your week? How do you structure your day? How do you get the most out of it so that not only can you do the things you need to do, but the things you want to do in addition to that? So Angie, start us off. Just give us kind of whether you want to start with philosophy or your week. Tell us how you lay things out.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is that, and I say this for most things in life, is that it is always a work in progress. So what I say today is probably gonna be different than what I would say a year from now, but I do feel like I'm getting to a point where it's just really minor tweaks. And I would say the big picture is that I really understand my priorities and what I want to get done in a day. And I understand that before the day begins. That's key. I I know there's a big talk about like work-life balance, but I like the word integration more because they all really roll into each other, and you just have to, again, prioritize at any given moment what you're going to put your attention, your focus, your attention on. So I think my second point is just knowing where those priorities lie in a given day or a week or and so forth. I have more of a zoom in and zoom out role. I love a journal. I use a journal to understand what I'm doing on a daily basis, and I even break that down by the hour. Just helps me. But I also know what I'm doing on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and on an annual basis, and I revisit those things pretty regularly. And I'm really careful to make sure I don't forget to do those things, because that's how you understand your priorities.
Well, that's great. So break it down, get specific for us. How do you plan out your day before?
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe I'll back up one bit, one step back from that, because I would say on Sundays I plan out the week, and I create what I call my blueprint of each day. And what that really means, and it doesn't take long, it really truly doesn't. I've timed it before. It takes about 5 minutes. I have a piece of paper for each day. It's front and back. I don't like wasting paper, but it is literally a piece of paper that I intend to throw away. And I have a Monday, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I usually don't do much on the weekends, so I don't tend to plan those out, but occasionally will. And in that framework, I know all of my appointments, so those just get written in. And I also know my habits; those get written in as well. So I even write down, like, wake up at this time, I am going to exercise at this time, and what I'm going to exercise with, and then all of the different appointments that I have. And if it's clinic, it might just be clinic with a big line down, like, okay, I'm doing clinic all day. And I do that for the entire week. So that's the first step, because it's a lot easier to plan each day when you have the blueprint already in front of you. And then the day before, typically, I like to do it right as the work day of the prior day ends. So for me, that's like about 5 o'clock. So maybe around 4:45, I actually plan my next day. And it takes another maybe 5 minutes. And I have a running list of all tasks that need to be done. And I said, I had mentioned I have a journal. I like the bullet journal method. We can go into that if we, if that's of interest, but there's many ways to do it. But in this way, it's like a brain dump. Um, since I'm a mom and a surgeon and a researcher and a friend and a wife, I have all these titles, everything goes into that. And that cognitive load would otherwise be massive. And having that brain dump, so to speak, is key for me, because all I have to do the day before is read through it. And when I read through it, it becomes pretty apparent what needs to get done based on my deadlines or whatever's going on. And when I see what needs to be done, I tend to pick the thing that is it kind of gives me a gut check, like, oh, I really don't want to do that. Then I know that's probably the highest priority, and it's probably the thing I'm not going to get to unless I actually, put some effort. So I tend to put that first in the day, and I kind of pepper it into those pockets of time where I don't have meetings or clinic or whatever. And then I kind of put those two or three things in, and then I stick to it. That's it's simple yet not so simple, but I stick to it no matter what comes down the line. And that's how I plan my day. And again, we can get into even more specifics on, because there's other things like where do you check email and things of that nature, but that's the general way I do it before each day begins.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And this is something I know I could get better at. Right now, I kind of plan out, if I'm lucky, at least my academic day a week, but I probably could do a better job of planning out some of the other days. And I like where you're going with this. I really like just conceptually the idea of the brain dump, right? Getting those things down on paper frees up all of that mind space, right? If you get out that to-do list and you put it on a piece of paper, you don't have to think about it. And you're not constantly thinking about what you need to do. It's there. And then you could start thinking about kind of higher executive function. What do you, what order are you going to put them in? And actually start thinking about solutions to those answers. And I think
It's called, and I was just going to say the word that I love, because I think it absolutely, and I didn't coin this phrase, and I'm sorry, I don't know who did, but I can tell you it wasn't me. But decision paralysis. We have so many decisions we have to make every day. I don't know if about you, but I was finding myself in decision paralysis, and then that 10-minute window, which is like golden time that you could use, it's gone because you were, me, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and I frittered it away, So I think that's key, is just knowing what it's there, and then ahead of time knowing exactly what we're going to do at that time.
Yeah, and I think one of the really nice points you bring up right in the beginning is that this is a work in progress. And I'll tell you, it's something I struggle with. Right now, this is my current iteration. This is my to-do book, and it's just a small little notebook, and you can see all the checklists that I kind of work through there. I've tried electronic versions. I've tried index cards, pieces of paper, legal pads. This is what's currently working for me. And I would encourage people to experiment, right? You're going to find what works for you, and everyone's going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing you said, Phil, that is something I did probably the last year is I said, it's a little easier to plan academic days if you haven't, but some of us don't have any, right? And what do? You still can do this method. And I actually get a lot done on my OR days, because if you really take into account all of the free time, and it's not a lot, but there are little pockets of time when you're waiting between cases, or you've updated the patient, but you're waiting for them to put the patient to sleep. I mean, those are all free time that you could be using at your discretion. So I plan those too, and I plan them very specifically. So as an example, and I found this to be very effective for me. But as an example, my Wednesday clinic is busy, and as everybody's clinic is, and I find that I've become more efficient if I prep my notes ahead of time. I really like it. And I actually did an experiment. I'm always into the scientific process for my own productivity and time. But I tested the time it took, and I actually saved time if I prep every clinic patient before they come in. And I didn't used to do that. But then I have to think, well, when am I going to do the prep work? Because that's still time. And I found that on my OR day on Mondays, I actually can get through almost the entire day prepping them. If I really know at this time I'm going to do this, at this time I'm going to do this. And so I'll update the patient, and then right away I get myself over to a computer away from distraction, and I just work, and prepping those patients. It's almost a game. How many can I prep before I need to go to the OR? And then likewise, when I'm eating lunch, I'll eat and then I'll do my prep work until they call me for the next. And I just about get them all done. So, don't discount days in which you have like clinic and OR, because there's usually some pockets of time there that you could use effectively.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I don't plan out my OR days particularly well other than operating. And I think, for me, it may work a little differently, but I think putting a list of priorities and things I want to get done. Listen, if I get nothing done in between cases, fine. But at least if I've planned them out, I'm not sitting there, okay, now I've got 10 minutes. What could I do with that 10 minutes? I know exactly what I need to do in that 10 minutes. That makes a ton of sense. And I just want to clarify for the audience, what I know this because you and I talk often, but one of your goals is you leave clinic with all of your notes done. You don't go home until they're done. So prep may make a lot of sense for you. I have the same goal. I don't go home until my notes are done, but I found for me, it's more, I lose efficiency by prepping. I see the patient, I write the note, and I tend to be more efficient that way. So you got to kind of figure out what works for you. And the key is be intentional about it, be thoughtful, experiment with it, take little notes, see how long it actually takes you. Knowing that it only takes you 5 minutes to plan something out makes a huge difference in reducing the anxiety about the time you could waste while doing those things.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I was going to ask you, do you use any technologies to help you kind of plan out your day? And this could be workout technologies or, agenda planners, anything, technology wise to help you?
Yeah, I went through different phases of trying things, and I've come to realize that probably there's no single technology that's going to fix efficiency and time management. I think it's all state of mind and priority setting and being realistic with our time. I would say that being realistic means accepting that we're not going to get it all done. And that is just absolutely true. And because you're not going to get it all done, you may as well prioritize the things that are most important to you, whether it's your family at that time, whether it is writing that grant, even though you know that emails are piling up, or you needed to get these notes signed, or whatever the case might be, you still have to make a choice and be accepting of it. It's much more freeing to know that you're not going to get it all done. And so I think for me, I've gone away from technology, and I really like the paper and pen feel. Like you, Phil, I have a notebook and I keep it, and it's like, well, yeah, I do run through it after probably a year and a half, but then I just get another notebook and that's it. I like having it with me. It's small, it can go anywhere. I like the process of writing it out because I don't know, there's something to me, it's almost like journaling. Actually, writing it is a process in and of itself. But the only thing I would say I do use technology for, I find it really helpful, is calendaring, because, I don't have a nanny. I have two kids, so I really have to be on it with like picking up kids, making sure my husband or myself were there for them and who's going where. So I have a Google Calendar for our family, and then that integrates with my work calendar, my Outlook calendar for my academic work, but also my OR calendar, etc. And then I use one calendar that adds it all together. I use Fantastical. I have no stock in that. I just happen to use it. I like it a lot because it integrates so well, and I can see anything at any point. It filters, so I could say, let me see it all. Let me just see my work side. Let me see just my personal side, and everything updates immediately. So if I update my Outlook there, it updates my Outlook for my admin assistant. If I update something on the kids side, it updates the Google Calendar so my husband can see it, etc. So for me, that's where technology has been the most helpful. But I think for the other pieces, the organization, I think you find your way, but I have found that I'm trying to be less and less reliant on technology, because it can also create addiction in me. And again, it's just that experimentation and like self-reflection. So I try to stay away from my phone as much as I can.
Really like the calendar integration. I need to work on that. My wife and I right now, she has her own Google Calendar, and then we have kind of a dry erase board, and we integrate our calendars that way, kind of on a monthly basis. But I'm usually the one who screws it up. So maybe this is a time where technology can help me be a better partner, especially, in kind of making sure we're organized for the kids. So I always love your practical pieces of advice here. The other place I found technology to help me with, and this isn't exactly on the medicine side of it, I think with the workout apps and
Mm.
smartwatches have helped me kind of coordinate my exercise and workouts so that I am paying attention to myself physically. I'm getting that part of my well-being in before kind of tackling, kind of the work aspects of calendars. I find that helpful. It took me a long time to settle. I finally caved into the Apple Watch, even though I'm not a huge Apple advocate, but Apple Watch has worked wonders for me. Peloton app works great for me in kind of organizing schedules and stacking. They call it stacking on that app. But yeah, I found those couple of things to be helpful for me.
Yeah, and I do the same thing, Phil. I probably the last like maybe 6 months, I stack all of my workouts, and I actually just did it because I do it every Sunday. I integrate it with like planning my week. I consider that it's part of my week, so I'll stack all my exercising, what I'm going to do, and I tend to do, Monday, Wednesday, Friday cardio, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, stretching, yoga, and then I also go through like all of the things like the meetings itself. Everything happens at the same time. So I'm with you there for sure. And I interestingly found that the Apple Watch allows me to be less reliant on technology because I feel like I can put my phone somewhere. In fact, I often do. And and just having my watch, I don't know what it does for me, but it just releases me from feeling like I have to have it in my hand all the time.
And I've shut off all the notifications on my watch. I get very few notifications. So
Yes,
that's,
agreed.
yes, unless it's my wife or work, I don't see it on my watch pretty much. Um, yeah. And once again, I don't do it weekly, but every night, my routine is every night kind of as I'm winding down. I don't like to I like to get away from the smart technology, just like you do before bed. But before I put my phone down for the night, I'll pick my workout classes out for the morning. So I don't have to think about it when I wake up. It's done. I wake up and I do them and I'm on to the next thing. So the preparation certainly, it's kind of the adage, a short amount of time invested saves you a ton of time on the back end of it. And I think that holds true for a lot of the things we're going to talk about today.
Yep.
So we've kind of talked about the week and the day. Tell us about longer term scheduling and planning. How do you keep track of your short, intermediate, long-term goals, and how do you map those out?
Yeah, so I do that very intentionally because I realize if when I didn't, I never got around to it. I mean, there's all these little tasks we have to accomplish, or we feel like we have to accomplish, and it just the time really goes past quickly. So I schedule. It's sort of I call it my self-reflection day. It's actually half a day, but every month, the last Friday of the month in the morning, I block that time every Friday from 8 to 12. And as silly as it sounds, I have an actual schedule that I follow. And I don't have it in front of me. I actually pull it up every, last Friday of the month. And I mean, it keeps me very accountable. And I know like this hour, I'm going to just think about what I've done for academics, right? And this hour, I'm going to think about what I've done on the clinical side and teaching side. And then this hour, I'm going to think about the personal side of how I've been as a parent, as a wife, as a friend. And I just think about where I'm at and where I want to be. Because in the end, it's really just about how I feel about myself. Like, am I being the person I want to be? Am I showing up as the person I want to be? Because if I do show up that way, usually everyone's gonna benefit too. I've learned that. Like that's whole thought behind self care. It's like if you show up for yourself, you're gonna show up much better for other people. So I know I'm gonna be working at my best capacity in all ways if I do this. And so the most important thing is as I reflect on this, I take some notes as well, and then I scan it in. So I read it at the very beginning, right before I move through my reflection at that time.
It's great. There was a great thread on Twitter over the last couple of weeks about Jerry Seinfeld,
Mhm.
about how his kind of preparation for comedy, and
Yes.
he does the same thing. There's a specified amount of time that he's going to sit and just think about his act, think about jokes, write it down. And when that time is done, whether he's written 3 pages worth of stuff or absolutely nothing, he gets up and moves on to the next thing. And it holds you accountable. It makes you more efficient. I think that's great advice, is really kind of marking out that time and holding yourself accountable to it.
Yeah, and I'm always amazed. I'll tell you, I laugh. I almost laugh every month because I'll go through projects and I'll forget about certain things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that project. I mean, I think like if I don't do this, like a lot of projects just like they sort of languish. It's and so it's kind of fun, and it's fun because you pick up some things you haven't seen in a while, and you're like, oh yeah, well, let me pick that back up again, or you know what, I will punt this for another month. But again, it's all about that priority setting because then you see all this swath of responsibilities you have, and it becomes abundantly clear about what is next. What is the thing that is going to drive you forward next. And the thinking part is so important because very few times do we have to actually to really reflect on where we're at and where we want to go. So you got to make the time for it.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I do this myself, and I work with a bunch of, I coach a fair amount of people now. And one of the things we always work on are kind of, what are your values? Most of the time, those don't change, but what are your priorities? Those can change, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
what's kind of your vision, right? And that happens in a timeline, right? Our vision 10 years ago is very different than it is now, is going to be different in 5 or 10 years. And putting your to-do list in that step of values and priority and vision, I think is a hugely important step to getting things done and managing your time properly. Now, you
Yeah.
called it the gut check before. That's one way to do it, right? You go, oh man, you know, my system is a slightly different gut check. I can only have to do things on the last page that I'm actually working on in my book.
Mhm.
So if I get to the next page, I have to cross things off and rewrite them. So if I've rewritten it more than 3 times, I know that's a problem, right? And it's the same kind of gut check sense, but that's the crazy system I've come up with. But that works for me. If I've written it more than 3 times, just get it done. And the other thing it helps me do is, listen, my number one priority in life is my family, my wife, and my kids. I want to be the best husband and dad I can be. So anytime there's something on my list that is family related, it's easy. I don't have to think about it. That's the priority. You do that first, and then everything else will follow after that. Granted, if the grant's not due the next day, but you know what I mean?
Oh, I do. I absolutely. That's the integration part, and I love that because uh, I just said I use a bullet journal, which it's one of many systems, but it's not that different for yours because every month, if I didn't do something, I copy it to the next month. But one thing I have in that book, and every time I start a new book, it's actually a really great way to start a new book every year because it lasts about a year, is my very first page of that book. I have personal goals and I have professional goals, and there's only 3 of them. I never have more than that because when you have more than 3 priorities, now you don't really have any priorities at all, right? So I always have 3, and I look at them every day. So when I get because we all are asked to do many, many things throughout the course of a day, week, month, year, and we have to decide if we're going to do it or not. And it's become really easy to make decisions because I look at that page every day. And when I have a decision, I look at the 3 goals and I ask myself, truly, does it push forward any of these 3 goals? And I can't talk myself into it. It's got to be like a hell yes kind of answer. And if it is, then it goes in there. And if it's a no, then it's a no. And I have to, and that's been hard. That I have to say, saying no has been a really big challenge. But I think it's critical whenever you're trying to create priorities and think about your time management is the ability to say no and know when to do it and how to do it.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I stress it a different way when, for myself, and when I talk to others. One of my favorite kind of word games to play is that the word priorities should not exist, right?
Yes.
You, by definition, you can only have one priority. You can prioritize things underneath that, but you can only have one priority. So I love how you use goals. right?
Yeah.
You can have more than one goal. You can have goals, but you can really only have one priority. So identify your priority, and then you can kind of rank things beneath that. And it helps people make decisions when they're really struggling. And as you talked about it before, kind of the paralysis, when you're just decision paralysis, when you're just caught up in your mind, and instead of moving forward and making progress.
Definitely.
So we talked a bunch about ourselves and how we kind of structure things. How do you help others structure? You're in faculty development now. You talk to others about this. What are some of the ways you kind of help them move forward?
Yeah, it's a great question because I always say, like, and it did took me time to realize this, is my way is not the right way. I just, I have had this feeling, probably even maybe 5, 6 years ago that, hey, if you do it this way, you're going to be fine. But that's not true. Everybody has the way that's going to more speak to them and to the way that they go about their daily tasks and their prioritization, et cetera. So, what I try to do, and it depends on the person, so when it's a trainee or if I'm doing a project, what I've now do is I like to talk a little bit about the priority, right, and the goals of the project, and we write them out. So I like doing that, and then I ask them to kind of create a system for themselves that we go over together. Like bring questions to the meeting. Let's like talk through, because I think one thing that I've realized, and I realized this to myself, is that oftentimes, especially when I was less experienced, I still am learning to this day, I would obviously underestimate the amount of time things take. And that comes with experience. You start learning, oh wait, no, this is going to take actually a lot longer. And so I feel like that's where uh, my experience could be most helpful. And then there are other questions that come up that, perhaps I can be helpful with, but I think that's where I try to let them create their system for themselves, because what I realized, whether it's a trainee or a faculty or whomever, my biggest goal is to cultivate like this passion for experimenting with your own systems, because that's where I've found the best benefit. It's not necessarily the technique or these specific things that I do, even though maybe some of them, maybe somebody can take something away from that, but it's actually the process in which you discover them for yourselves, for yourself. So, that's what I try to do. And so I ask questions. I ask, have you tried this? Let's try this. What are you going to try next? And then let's come back and talk about it. And once that process is in place, then anyone can take that home and use it the rest of their lives. I use it all the time. Like I said, a month from now, a year from now, my answers to all these questions are going to probably be slightly different because I found something that works a little bit better for me. And that's going to be different for someone else. So learning the process, understanding how you're going to experiment with yourself and pay attention to these little things and change for the better, that's I think where it's at with others.
Yeah, and you're bringing up a coaching paradigm, right? And we can all sit down. We all have people we work with, and we could sit there and talk to them. They say, okay, what are your problems? Lay them out, and we could come up with a solution for them. But that's short lived. And like you said, 6 months for a year, they're going to be back in bad patterns. And the key is helping understand what's the process that helps you figure out the right things. And as you described, some of the most valuable coaching is self-coaching, right? You figured it out better than most. I struggle with it. I continue to struggle with it. I bounce ideas off you. I bounce ideas off other people. I love to hear what you have to say, because I always pick up at least one thing or 7 things that I could be doing better, that at least I'm going to try. But they're really great points, is trying to figure those things out. So I know this may be kind of a self-evident question, or may have kind of been covered by some of the stuff we've talked about, but what are some of the common pitfalls or issues you see really commonly made with, it could be anybody, but typically this is going to be junior people. It could be residents, it could be faculty, until we kind of figure out our own system. But, what are some of the common things you can see with people that go wrong?
I think number one, beyond everything else, is taking on too much. I think I've been guilty of that. I know many folks have been as well. And um, that, and I wonder sometimes, like, maybe that is part of the process. It's supposed to be that way, that we do take on too much. It's almost like creating a pendulum whereby we do too much and then we got to dial it back. maybe we don't do enough. We dial it forward a bit until we get to that right sweet spot for us. So I do think that's probably part of the process. Nevertheless, I think it's something that if you don't pay attention to, you don't learn from, well, that can have really significant detriments to your career, to your personal life, to your professional life, to your happiness, and that's where I think, that those self-reflection moments can be really helpful. Um, and I think biting off more than you can chew comes from several issues. I think first is just underestimating time. I had already mentioned that. I think the second is the guilt of saying no, which is really difficult. And I think the third is FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like if I don't do this, my career is going to be in the tank. Like I have to do this to succeed. And the fact is, it's not true. There's many different paths to success, whatever that means for you. And certainly, the guilt often comes from ourselves rather than the other person. And then the underestimation is again us believing that we can tackle everything when we can't. And so with time and with reflection, you can kind of get over all of those three slowly. I mean, I still work on it a lot. I mean, I still have a lot of guilt, but I'm much better than where I was, and that's all I can ask for, is I'm improving.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I mean, it's it's officially called the paradox of success, and we see this all of the time, specifically in academic medicine. But you could see this in all aspects of medicine and other careers, where early on you're full of energy, you're looking for a way to make an impact, whether it's clinically or academically in research, whatever it may be. And so you say yes, 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 yes to everything. And in the beginning, that's actually good advice. You want to say yes, you want to learn, you want to take on increasing responsibilities. You show success, and people keep dumping things on you because you're really good at getting things done. And then next thing you know, you're spread all over the place. You're not getting anything done that you wanted to get done. So there's kind of a sweet spot there where you got to learn to step back and say, all right, what are my values? What's my priority? What are my goals? Right? And how do I start selectively saying no to the things that aren't helping me achieve the things I want to do? Because there's plenty of other really intelligent, really smart, really talented people out there who can do those things. Make your biggest impact in the things you enjoy doing, and much easier said than done, but it's certainly I think a good piece of advice that you bring up.
Yeah, I think I think about what I tell myself, and it all comes back to your values and who you want to be and how you want to show up. That's what I said at the very beginning of the hour is, I always say I am a person who does what she says she will do. And that's just me. That's a value I have. And so for me, I want to make sure if I commit to something, I can really do it, and I can do it in a way that I'm proud. I have pride in what I do. So that has helped me with deciding when to say no. And the second thing that helped me with that was understanding what you just said, which is that this can be a great opportunity for someone else. I love giving, whether it's giving gifts, and I reframing that helped me tremendously, because I realized if I say no to this, I might be giving an opportunity to someone else who may be killing to get this opportunity. And maybe in where I'm at my career, it's not as exciting to me. Then why should I be taking it from them? So now, instead of feeling that guilt, I actually take a few minutes, and I do this every time I say no. First of all, I usually take some time and I think about it, because that truly I need to think about it, and I should. Not too long, like maybe a day or two, and I like just ponder it, like think about my goals, like my priority, what am I, and if the answer is no, then I think about who may benefit from it. And so I think through lots of stuff, and I do it when I'm driving in. I'm like, this person might be going up for promotion soon. Actually, I know a promotion item. Like, I bet that they could use that. So I really truly think about each individual person I know and who might benefit. And then when I say no, then I say, hey, this is a great opportunity. I'm so sorry I can't do that right now. But here are three people. I like threes. So I usually give three people. And here's why each person might be good. It takes me just a minute to write it. Here's an email address. And then I send it off. And I think it's a nice, gracious way to say no. And everyone appreciates that. I know, like, when people said no to me and they've given me, other options, I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But it's also helpful to others, I hope. And it also finally, and maybe this is most important to myself, is that I don't have the guilt of saying no. So I'm able to do it more often. So I found that works really well for me and hopefully helps others too.
Yeah, it's amazing what reaching out and helping others can do. And it truly does. Well, whether you believe in karma or not, it does come back around, and it makes a huge difference. Gracious no's, giving of yourself to other people, giving other people opportunities comes back in spades. And it really is true. So I commend you for doing that. We've talked a bunch about theory and kind of some of the more abstract thoughts. Let's get back to concrete. Epic, email, managing your day to day. Tell us, kind of how you plan out those things.
Yes, all these things. Where do I begin? So a lot of these are the unimportant tasks, and I'm not saying like charting's important. Yes, of course it is. Email is important in and of itself, right? This is how we communicate. So, but if you let it overtake your life, it will. You can ask probably anybody listening at some point or another, email or epic charting, electronic health record charting is going to take over your life. But you can manage it. And again, I try to be really concrete and objective in the time I'm going to engage in those activities. And it always gets done. So I have a couple mantras in my head that help me. I don't know if it helps others, but I'm a perfectionist. I bet there's a few type A people listening to this podcast right now.
Just a few.
Just a couple. And it's great. I mean, being type A has its benefits, but perfectionism is not, I think, a trait that is something that I think is as helpful as we think it is. So I have to really battle that with, for example, charting, and I also battle with email, but let's start with charting. I'm really specific. I told you already about how I think about my charts. It's non-negotiable to me. I leave with my charts done. And there's something about telling your brain something, and it just will do it. If you just don't give it a choice. So when I started doing that, it just started happening. Now, that being said, I like to have my notes looking good. I love grammar. So, I'm going to be correcting things that probably don't need to be corrected. Everyone gets the point, but the misplaced comma, I don't think anyone's going to say anything about, but I have this urge. So my mantra for charting is, and it's again, someone else's quote, but I always say B minus work. And I just say it over and over. And when I say it, I just stop myself before I start to like reformat a note or whatever. I just say it, and then I get my work done. My clinic I'm pretty much out the door usually by 4 and sometimes by 5, but I have a full clinic. My last patient's at 3:45. So like, I just am working the whole day long, just trying to get it done quickly. So that's the way that I get through charting. I just do. I just tell myself there is not an option. These notes are getting done by 5, and then they do. And so try it for a while. It does work. I don't take breaks. I keep distractions at a minimum. I do whatever it takes to get those notes done by 5. Then in terms of email I think is endless. And, there is a paradox of email. The more email you send, the more email you will receive. So I'm a little more deliberate about that. And what we haven't talked about yet, Phil, is about time and what you do when you do it. We touched upon it, but I think you need to know yourself. Most people are most alert and awake and creative in the morning. Not everyone, but many people,
especially surgeons, but not all.
Yes, exactly. And so know who you are and do the hard things first. And email is not hard. Email is actually very easy. That's why we do it. Because it takes 2 seconds to click something, and then you feel good that email's deleted. But then at the end of the day, we don't have much to show for it. I always say, like, I love candy, so I always say it's like eating candy. You might binge on that candy, and it feels good at the moment. If you're like me, I love candy, but I don't feel so good 2 or 3 hours later when I look back at what I've eaten. Whereas if I have a nice salad, The salad's actually pretty satisfying once I get into it. I'm like, actually, this is a pretty good salad. And then I feel good 3 hours later. I see that the same way in my work. When I start a grant, like it's hard to get started. But then when I get into it, I'm like, I actually really like writing grants. Forgot about that. It's great. And the other day, I'm like, dang, I got like a couple of sections done. Email, I'll never feel that way. I will always feel empty, because I haven't really done and accomplished a lot. So that being said, I will schedule that later in the day when I'm more tired. So usually around 3-ish. Do I do some emails during the day? Yeah, probably. Like when I have these like little nooks and crannies of the day, as I call them, I might like send off a few emails, but dedicated time. I always have dedicated time for email, but it's always like 20-30 minutes in the late afternoon when I'm most tired, because I know I'm not probably going to do anything productive then anyway. So I may as well just get some email done. Do I get it all done every time? No. I do have talked about inbox zero, and I strive for it, but it's not everything. I don't sacrifice other things that are of more substance just to achieve it. I strive for it. And if it doesn't get done in that 30 minutes, then it's okay. It'll be there waiting for me tomorrow.
It's not your priority.
No, it's not.
It's good.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And just to kind of bring some pointers. So the working in the morning versus the day is called your chronotype.
Yes.
And the classic analogy is larks versus owls. And you just have to know who you are, and you can really be more efficient if listen, for me, it would be really bad to do epic and email at night. It wouldn't work for me, or to write my papers or grants. That's not where my brain is. But for other people, if that's who you are, that's okay. Embrace it, because you'll be more efficient. Don't try and be something you're not just because you think you should be up early in the morning and responding to things. I think you bring up some great points. I'm just going to use this opportunity to summarize things a little bit. You hear people say, use technology or it will use you, right? And so, to that point, when I'm looking at emails, I'll do my emails and then I actually close Outlook. It's done, because otherwise you're getting pop-ups and inundations on your computer. If you're trying to actually write something of meaning, get rid of the distractions. I will never, ever leave Epic open. Never. Like you can absolutely that Epic inbox can own your life if you don't put it away. Set a period of time. I've got 20 minutes here, half an hour, 45 minutes. I'm going to answer every patient I can in those 45 minutes, and then I'm done. And I'm not looking at it for the rest of the day, and that's okay too. And part of the ability to do that is setting expectations. So for email, I set expectations with my staff and with my team. Listen, email is not urgent communication. If you need me, call me or text message me. I'm available 24 hours a day, but do not expect me to answer an email urgently. It's just not going to happen. And even my bosses know that. And they all have my cell phone, both of my cell phones. And it's the same thing with patients. We're going to get to Epic at least every 24 hours. If it's urgent, don't leave it in Epic, because we may not get to it for 24 hours. Call us. You have all of the phone numbers, you have all of the access. And the last point I want to bring up, which is really good, is B- work. It's a hugely important concept, and you can't bring your A game everywhere. And there was a wonderful dean named Kim Skorupski at Hopkins when I was there. And I remember her saying this: listen, if you're getting up at your national organization and giving a plenary talk, that's your A+ talk. Spend your time, polish your talk. Your slides are perfect. To your point, your grammar, everything is perfect. But if you're talking at the local church about prostate cancer screening, that's not your A+ talk. And actually, it would look weird if you gave your A+ talk there, right? Recognize when you need to be A+ and when you don't, and kind of adjust your output accordingly. And I would say the last trick I've learned for Epic charting, and this is my thing, I've converted. I'm one of those people. I put my assessment and plan up front in the top of the note. That's where I put my effort. I'm a consultant. For the vast majority of people are sending things to me. They've already done all of the history and physical. They know what their past medical history and surgical history is. I'm just confirming that stuff in my note. They want to know what I have to say. So I put that up front. It forces me to spend the most time on that. And that's where I put my efforts, and it's right up front for everyone to see. That actually helped me in clinic to be more efficient as well.
Yeah, those are all such great tips, Phil. I mean, I always enjoy talking to you because, again, we think very similarly about how we can improve, how we can bring our best selves. Again, A+ doesn't mean best, right? It just means your best self is just you being aligned with where you're supposed to be for that specific task, for that specific relationship. Like you just show up the way you want to show up, you know? And anyway, I love all those tips. You always have a great way of summarizing.
Yeah. Well, listen, being prepared, being intentional. I think that's, I mean, if there's a take home message, if there's a single take home message, being prepared, being intentional, thinking about what you're going to do before you do it can save you a ton of effort and efficiency, and keep you, basically give you the time to do all of the things you love to do, or the things that truly are your priority, right? Your
Oh, 100%. And,
family,
you know,
kids.
absolutely. And I'm laughing to myself because I'll tell you what I'm working on right now. You know, I'm always working on something, you know, to improve upon. And and as silly as this sounds, I have been scheduling my relaxation time. And I know that sounds silly, but I bet someone listening can relate to this. And if I let myself, you know, go, I'm a workaholic. I love work. I do. And I have to be really careful about not overdoing it. When I say work, I don't even mean just clinic and academics and all of that. I mean, like, I don't know, like power washing the house. I mean, I just always find something to do. And I very rarely like just quiet, you know, have some quiet and just sit and read or do something just for me. And the truth is I do enjoy all those things, but we all need some time to like rejuvenate, like take a minute and take a breath, reflect, whatever you want to say. And I do that for work on those Fridays, but I know I need to do that more often. It's like that's not enough. You know, just a few hours on a Friday, right? So I've started, you know, being intentional about like I'm going to read during this hour, and that's it. Because it feels a bit uncomfortable whenever we're accustomed to go, 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 or do, and like crossing things off our to-do list, because it feels good to cross something off our to-do list. So I don't have the answer for myself yet, but I do know, like I recognize that's something I need to work on. And so I'm scheduling it in, and that's gonna be my priority, you know? And in fact, I know what I'm reading tonight, and I know when I'm gonna read it. So I think not to forget that, like in everything we speak about, it's not just about work and doing it that way, but also like scheduling and making sure we have the time for ourselves, in whatever way serves you. You know I need to slow down, so I'm recognizing that. I just got to work on it.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to take a quick second to pull a couple books off my shelf, just because we
Okay.
started talking about reading, just
Yeah.
so the audience, if anybody's interested in kind of some of the background to this, or if they want to read more about it, I'm going to hold up two books. The first is Essentialism, Greg McKeown. Second one is Atomic Habits, James Clear. Both great books for time management and kind of planning out your days. And the other one that kind of came up today was The Go Giver, kind of giving of yourself. Great book if you're looking for something to read. If you like reading about this stuff, Go Giver is a really short, easy book that really can help you understand why it's so easy to give of yourself to others. But I want to finish on one other thing, and it's kind of the flip side. You and I spend a lot of time on this. We work on it. We're getting pretty good at it. We're always works in progress. But there's a lot of people out there who aren't, and that's okay too. And I would say, you know, the first two things I'll bring back and then allow you to comment on this is, you know, sometimes I find myself, yeah, it's hard for me to schedule relaxed time, but I also sometimes need to schedule a stop to that, because I'm also one of those people who can totally get away from myself and get, you know, kind of get a little burnt out and spend too much time away from work and need to get refocused and realigned, because you can put yourself behind the eight ball if you don't do that. And then the other thing is that, listen, we are all in medicine. Healthcare is really tough right now. And there are days when you just need to survive. You just need to get from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, and it's going to be crazy. And there's nothing wrong with that. I would just encourage you to try to have as few of those days as possible. And you can do that by planning and being thoughtful. So love to hear your kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love what you said there, Phil, because it's true. Like, not you can't have a perfect day every day, and life would be boring if it were that way. We have to have the good and the bad together. Um, but I think a lot of the things that we talked about today, I think the reason it's there, like the reason that I think it's so important to think about the process and reflect on what you do every day is because I want to, and I really want to be sincere about this, is like, no matter who you are, You can start today. Start with something small. And that's something maybe just paying attention to how you feel. That's it, and what you're doing with your time. When you go home and you have a bad day, what do you do with your time? Like, does it actually serve the purpose you think it is? Like, maybe it's like, I don't know, binge watching Netflix, and maybe it does, but oftentimes it may not have the effect that you think it's going to have, right? And it's just about paying attention, and you can just start that today. You don't need to read books. You don't need to, I never, I don't have any coaching training. I just became curious about what I was doing with my life. You don't need any of that. You just need to remain curious, ask yourself some questions, and then just try some little things from time to time. You put up that book, Atomic Habits, and that they go through that in Atomic Habits, is how it's just the little things that matter, but you just got to be consistent and then reflect on them. And like, is it the things that you want to keep, and then all the rest of it you throw away. So I agree, Phil, like, I think that's a very important takeaway. Whoever you are listening to this, you can start today. And I always think of it like highway driving. You may start today and it's going great. Like, you're on that highway, racing down the highway, but occasionally you might get like a little off the road on that like gravel area, right? And it's bumpy. But do you stop your car when that happens? No, you're just like, oh, that's just like a wake-up call. And so you can reframe it. It's not just that you failed there, right? You don't turn the car off and say, well, that's the highway. I'm done. No, you just say, oh, wow, okay. Like that, thanks for that. That was helpful. Let me get back on the road now. I'm going to change something up and I'm going to get back on. And so I think about that for myself a lot, because it's easy to like give up or to say, hey, that's it. It's not working. It's not true. Like, reframe it. Just say, hey, okay, well, good to know that doesn't work. Great. On to the next thing. We're going to try something new, and you get right back on. So that has always helped my brain reframe, like when I'm getting off track, whatever. And that happens often. So
Yeah,
to help others. Yeah.
I love it. So if unless you have anything else you want to tell the audience, I'll give us a brief summary here. And I think you did it great in your last kind of summation there. But listen, we're all works in progress. We want to be intentional and realistic with what we do, and don't let the rumble strips on the side of the road derail your trip. I think that's
absolutely.
I think it's a fair summation. So Angie, always wonderful talking with you. Thank you so much for being here. I know people are going to benefit from this conversation, and look forward to talking to you again.
Well, thanks as always, Phil. Take care.